think doing the 5,500 is enough. All right, it's not.
So I would like to say that, smart CPAs hire TPAs, right?
A good TPA does not bring you problems. A good TPA brings you opportunities to fix things before the IRS or the Department of Labor thinks it's a problem.
But God knows, once again, what about compliance?
Howdy, this is Christopher and Catherine Tipper, your favorite 401 couple for a guestless solo podcast episode. So those of us who watch our YouTubes know that our shtick there is bourbon, and that the shtick with 401 Couple, the podcast, is different. We got the light glaring on there. This is a very nice birthday gift from Naro and Lindsay. Thank you very much. We will be enjoying some scotch while we talk about 401k plans. Because
actually, we're talking about why TPAs.
TPA, sorry, why TPAs? I knew that. I forgot. Mrs. Tipper, what do you got for me?
So when people think about 401k plans, which is in the sandbox that we play in most of the time, right?
Yes. I'm just thinking, how often do people think about 401k plans?
Well, when they do, okay? They know it's a product,
right?
But it's a product with a service.
Yes.
And it's more than one dimension. If it was just one dimension, it'd be a service, not a service, a product.
Okay.
There's a lot more to it. So the question is, where do TPAs and the things that we worry about fit into this? And why is it important to have a TPA?
Okay. Can I back up for somebody who's coming into this absolutely cold? Okay.
Are you brand new?
No, I'm not brand new.
Okay.
I'm assuming at some point we're going to have some random person accidentally watch this for the first time and not know how to spell 401k. Okay. TPA stands for third party administrator, all right, which actually covers a lot of industries, but for the most part, most often covers the retirement plan space, specifically ERISA retirement plans. So the function of the role that the TPA does is they're the compliance consultant. Our job is to prepare the plan document for plan sponsor signature, help them track and determine eligibility, keep track of vesting for them, help them make sure that distributions are appropriate, participant loans are appropriate, etc. Certain notices need to be generated, and at the end of the year, for almost every plan, there's a Form 5500. We don't sign it for them. We get it ready for them to sign electronically, and of course, if it's large enough to have, if it's large enough, over 100 participants with account balances, they're going to need a large plan audit. We work with a large plan auditor.
So in summary, there's a need for the plan.
There's a need for a plan.
In a plan, there's a need to have someone looking out for the compliance issues.
Yes, that must
someone
be done.
Who's looking at the nuts and bolts of what happens with the plan, meaning
Correct.
Loans and distributions, tax forms, money going in the right place, everything else. So we're doing both the compliance in terms of the rules, which are both the law and regulations, right, and all the other stuff that
notices,
goes in,
etc. Yes,
and then it's all the tasks that make it work. And so some of this, it's just not why is it important to have a TPA? The whole industry, I think, thinks that they can kind of write us out of the equation, right? Is just that, if the software's strong enough,
we're easily replaceable.
We're easily replaceable. And this is a defense for why TPAs.
Are you defending your PhD now, Mrs. Tipper?
No, I'm not. I'm defending my presentation now.
Okay.
So the first thing that I always like to talk about, and obviously, you will jump in, I'm sure you will, that having a TPA, having someone who specializes in the compliance and the day-to-day nuts and bolts of running a plan is risk management for a very low cost.
Correct.
And the reason is because of the things that we care about, that we're laser focused on how the law works, how it affects our plan sponsors. Since most of the plans have rank and file employees with money and plans, it's important to do this right.
Correct.
And your risk is that you screw up your employees' money or your employees think you have screwed it up. Okay.
Which can
So,
be worse. I
right. The
mean,
perception
really
of that
annoyed
you're not competent.
participants could be worse than the DOL or the IRS coming after you. You
Right.
could lose all credibility with your participants, your employees, if you don't pay enough attention to your retirement plan.
So, by having high quality compliance services, you avoid most of these types of conflicts by not having long standing problems in your plan.
Correct.
So, under the theory of doing it right, getting the corners straight, underneath the bed and everything else, having somebody who actually doesn't see that just as it's not just a process, it's seeing how a plan actually um, how it actually is holding up against the laws and what it is its processes
I think
working.
the phrase is looking at it at a holistic view for that particular plan sponsor. You
Right.
need a sweet spot, okay, which what you're saying is leading me into this hierarchy of people who are performing compliance work. Can I try this and see if this makes sense for you right now?
Okay, so let's hear your hierarchy.
And I'm going from bottom to high in terms of number of people doing it. All right. As I said, you could have a person figure out how to do this by themselves. So you could theoretically at the bottom, you have a one-man person, one person entity, whether they're a solo TPA or they're working at a company trying to figure out how to do this all by themselves. So that is theoretically possible. A lot of stuff is going to get missed. Likely there's no tech background, there's no resources, there's no education, there's very little in the way of experience, etc. Then once you come above that,
So I'd say that's somebody who's just aiming to get the tax form
they're
done.
just trying to get the 5500 done. So many people think they know they have the 5500 has to be done by statute. All right. So they're trying to get that done and they think doing the 5500 is enough. Right. It's
And
not.
and I know you're trying to create a hierarchy in how this works, but I could say that somebody who's a CPA who believes they can do tax forms, therefore they can do these tax forms, is part of that beginning level of
Yeah, I wasn't going
hierarchy.
to actually use the initial CPA, but that's a lot of what I'm talking about.
Okay, well,
Right. Yeah. No, that is that's and not the
this is to
and
say the parts out loud.
this
So,
is an example of what we're talking about. Then above that, you have a uh, competent mid-size compliance consultant, TPA, lots of experience, lots of people to get the work done, lots of resources, lots of breadth, lots of depth, ability to have a holistic view. Okay. Be above that, you have the independent TPA shops that are part of a very large roll up. Okay. They are starting to get away from the ability to have a plan designed and operated by uh, that's specifically for that plan sponsor just because of their size. All right. And then you've got the massive large corporations who do the bundled plans. And I like how you pronounce it, bungled. All right. Obviously, we think we're the sweet spot where we're in between the two smaller entities doing the work and the two bigger entities doing the work. The only thing we do is retirement plan compliance, right? We don't do we're not a daily valuation shop. We don't do dry cleaning. We don't do laundry. We don't do payroll. We don't do accounting. We don't do financial advice. We just do ERISA compliance.
so you're speaking specifically of the way that we approach being a TPA, meaning being
Yes,
in the middle part.
right.
Though part of what I was starting to do was talking about people who call themselves TPAs generally, and that's still the group that sees themselves as that,
Yes.
are usually very concerned about the technical side of the plans. Now, whether or not their processes and their companies run well, their ability to handle the tech and the downloads, but it's kind of a continuum of some people are having problems with the process at the bottom. There's the middle where we feel is the sweet spot. And then the large part is when they're all about process, right? The process of pushing it all through and everything.
Process supersedes everything else.
Right. So pushing a whole bunch of people through a process is more important than are all the 5500s right. right?
Correct. Or done.
Or done or signed.
Yeah,
They might
signed.
be
Not
done or
that,
even
well,
signed.
yeah.
Well, that's
So do I
part of
get to talk about that as an example?
not
Not
yet.
yet. All right, I'm waiting. You let me know
wait,
when to.
because we're talking
I
about
know.
why TPAs. So
Gotcha.
the first thing was risk management for a relatively low cost, right? Because of our
Yes.
focus. Okay. Then the next part is deep knowledge of how plans work, what are common issues, and how to avoid them. And so under the theory of you can hire a plumber or you can have a really great plumber, right? So your house, the pipe is leaking, you can call a guy and the guy can come and stop the leak.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that your sink is going to work all the time,
Right.
right?
You've
And when you have
patched something.
you've patched it, right? So the if you want to have your plan work well year after year after year, having having someone who's concentrating on being a great TPA, they have that deep knowledge of how the plan works, what are the common issues, and how to avoid them. And even at lunch today, you're walking around going, "That's the craziest, dumbest
We're
plan
going to
design
get to that in a
ever."
little bit later.
Okay, well, I you don't have it written down as a list, so
I
I don't know what's
understand. No,
coming.
it's. I will figure out when
So,
it gets in there.
so I'd say what the people in our sweet spot are doing really well is they know how to effectively fix the problems that happen, right?
I was going to say, more importantly, have a plan design based on the factors at the employer and who their payroll vendor is and who their record keeper is, because those things need to be taken into account. We are doing everything we can to keep the plan design so that we have a reduction in the liability of mistakes. So what you're talking about again at the beginning, risk management.
Right. It's risk management. The other thing, too, about the deep knowledge in our sweet spot is that the bigger the organization you use for something, the more likely are you going to call 1-800.
1-800 ignore
If
me.
they don't
Yeah.
pick it up, 1-800, the person who answers the question doesn't know how to answer the question. 1-800, that person doesn't even know who to ask the question of. And so when you're working with a TPA that focuses on TPA work that's in the sweet spot, you don't have to work very hard to get to a level of someone who actually has years of working on this, years of experience of knowing what really matters, what doesn't, what's a simple fix for something, or what's a blow your mind awful problem, and what's a like this can be solved
Right.
problem.
Right.
The other thing that's important about TPAs,
Yes.
the why, is that our
Yes.
viewpoint is distinct and important.
Yes.
Now, the reason I say that is when somebody gets a 401k plan and they have a financial advisor, the financial advisor, a lot of times their concerns are the return on the investments and the costs of the plan.
You
Imp-
forgot before that
what?
what funds are in the plan.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Well, no, that's so a lot of them, a lot of financial advisors who are new to the space, okay, new to having retirement plans, don't understand what the most important element in a 401k plan is, and they are very surprised to find out it's the actual investments offered
Right. Right.
because their viewpoint is investments first.
So the financial advisors, when I hear, different things, it's maximizing earnings and lowering costs.
Yep.
When CPAs look at it, they don't always know the ins and outs of this corner of the tax code.
And they very often want their S corp owners to have as low a W-2 as possible, which is very difficult because we do benefit testing based on percentage of compensation.
Right. And so what we can do is do modeling that shows what the W-2 should be in
From a
order.
retirement plan point of view.
Right. So the plan sponsor can think of that. So that is a viewpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have the viewpoint of just lower wages to the very bottom to minimize contributions, that isn't the same as looking at how much, the overall benefit that can be done in a plan, right?
Yep, correct.
So I would like to say that, smart CPAs hire TPAs, right? Um, and,
We have a lot of CPA clients.
and I love them.
And we love them. No, we love them.
All, okay.
Definitely.
And then like I've noticed this, like if you put a question in an AI model right now, The answer that you get back is significantly more geared towards financial advisor
Yes, very
ideas.
much so.
And part of that is that um, all of the data going into the atmosphere is all about investments, returns, all of this kind of stuff, and it doesn't sound compliance.
Nope.
And when it doesn't sound compliance, it means you still need that structure to be in place for the plan to be
Right.
legal. And that's actually pretty important. So, okay, the other thing that TPAs, why TPAs? We both answer the hard questions about plans and we care about the hard plan questions. So, a lot of times people go, I don't know, I don't care. TPAs, it's throwing red meat at us to ask us a hard
Those are
question.
the ones we
Not only
really
does
want to focus on and help and answer correctly.
so not only can a TPA staff talk for 5 hours about
Yeah.
compensation
Yeah.
and think that they're not even working very hard on
Right.
getting to the end of it.
Right.
They'll call their friends, they'll call their other contacts. They actually, it sounds,
They'll do the real research.
they will do the research. And it's funny, there's almost like a cultural thing about TPAs because we care about the tax code, we care about the history on it and how it relates to plans. We really want to know the answers and we want to know historically how it's been put together and why
Right.
we've arrived at this point and why we
Yep.
believe what we believe at
Yep.
this point. So, anything you want to answer about caring about the hard questions?
No,
Okay.
but it's a really good TPA. We consider ourselves amongst there. They are really happy to find the tough stuff. They really want to get the things fixed. They like, yes, everybody likes to have an easy plan with no problems because it's nice to get something finished. But we also greatly appreciate the challenge of something that's new and unusual. This is my, 36th to 37th year. And every week I'm still coming across something I've never come across before. It's still a learning challenge. And I think this is the time to say that a good TPA does not bring you problems. A good TPA brings you opportunities to fix things before the IRS or the Department of Labor thinks it's a problem. Would you agree with that, dear?
Right. And
Okay.
it's unsolved problems are dangerous.
Unsolved problems are dangerous, and a lot of people think I'm being very silly when I say this, but no, the IRS and the Department of Labor are very happy with people self-correcting and turning themselves in. The vast
With
majority.
a solution.
Hmm?
Turning themselves in with a solution.
Well, that's part of turning themselves in.
Okay. I
Yeah,
want to make sure that
no,
that
there's
part's
that the fix is done. Many of them have no user fees or penalties. Just go forth and sin no more. And some of the penalties or the user fees are remarkably low, minuscule in comparison to what the IRS can charge if they catch you doing something wrong. So
Yep.
fix it yourself. I mean, listen to listen to the TPA help you fix it.
So the other thing is we do care about the service level on plans.
Very much so.
So it's not just, on the surface, 401k plans have the look of just a product, but it's important to understand the level of support you get with the plan. And I'd say out in the market, a lot of the really cheap plans are do it yourself plans, right? The
Very
client
much
does
so.
it themselves. They're getting a 2,000 piece Lego set and not very good instructions to put it together. So, it's a plan designed for the processes of the company offering
We
it.
spoke recently with a prospect. They haven't been able to get all the trustees in a room yet to make to decide on moving things forward yet, but they're at a bundled provider, and so for the past 3 years, they've been having to do more and more of the plan compliance themselves. For the past compliance year, the plan sponsor had to determine who the Hileys were, who the keys were, who the non-Hileys were, who the non-keys were, whether or not the plan was top heavy, whether or not the plan was passing ADP, and then they had to finish the 5,500. Like, what?
Do they get to put on the resume they were a TPA?
No, I don't know.
They
No,
worked,
they were a
worked
poor
as a
plan
TPA?
sponsor, and I was
Yeah.
just absolutely, there's some other things we can talk about where the larger the firm, the less helpful involvement you get from a TPA. But that's pretty under the guise of collecting information, they're having plan sponsors actually do the work, but they present it as an easy one-stop solution. Well, yeah, because this plan sponsors doing it all.
Right. Okay. And so with TPAs, especially in the sweet spot, our specialization is our core competency is quality plan compliance.
Yes.
So with other service models like bundled, which is one company does every single part of it, they have a lot of balls in the air. And what are their priorities? Who knows what their priorities are? Not often compliance. Payroll companies do payroll first. Maybe they're really good at payroll.
Maybe.
God, maybe,
Maybe.
maybe, but God knows. Once again, what about compliance? For them, 401k is a side product with not much in the way of service. Record keepers are mostly built to have streamlined services and have less resources if a plan goes deep into the weeds. And we work with record keepers, but their ability to solve those deep in the weed problems, it's hard for them.
Right. So let's talk about record keepers for a second here, okay? And why scale for them matters, all right? Having millions and millions of people on a technology platform doing the trades, that responds very, very well to scale.
Right.
All right. It doesn't, it is, you can set it up so that the more trades you do, the more people you have, the more efficient you are. That is not true with doing an ADP test or filling out or completing a Form 5500 for a plan sponsor. There are certain things that can be done to help make that process easier, but there's still not a lot of scale. Whether a person has 50 5500s or 150 5500s, you can't do it's not making transistors. Okay, so that part, the compliance component of having an ERISA plan, is the part that's the least scalable, which is why the really big vendors don't do a good job.
Yep. Other things, why TPAs, that we can go deep and we can go wide on plan issues. So we are resourceful.
Sometimes whether the plan sponsor wants us to or not.
Okay. Well, but
We're enjoying
we'll go looking.
ourselves.
Right. If we don't know, we'll find out. And we have actually really big networks. Usually, we know who the big lawyers in the field are to go ask questions if you have to go that direction.
If you're a plan sponsor and you're actually listening to this, God bless you, and you're looking, or you're a potential plan sponsor, and you're looking at different TPA firms. Okay, find out how many study groups senior people are in. All right. If the TPA you're looking at is not involved in doing anything with the industry associations on an active level, I don't mean just showing up at conferences, and or does not have anybody at a senior management level involved in any kind of study group, you might want to look at a different TPA. And yeah, we're involved in those things.
The other thing too is you can take us with you.
Yeah.
And that means,
yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what that actually means is, your brand new plan, you just started out, this record keeper seemed great to you here, but either they changed or you changed, you want to go to another one. Your great TPA helps you make that change. Your financial advisor retires. Hey, you go to a new one, but your TPA can still make sure that the compliance stuff stays solid and that it works within the new system. So, under the theory that we make things work and we adapt to make things work, we're a great partner to keep over the long term as you go through all these cycles.
Correct. If I could add to that and or put my own spin on it, think of a plan sponsor as something organic. Excuse me, not a plan sponsor, a 401k plan, as something organic. All right. The company's small to begin with, starts off with 5 employees. At the end of the plan's life, there's 150 people in the plan. Okay. So that you're probably going to have different payroll vendors in there. You're going to probably have different different record keepers, because they have different pricing based on different average account balances, et cetera, and things like that. But it can be the same 401k plan that has had numerous amendments and tweaks and adjustments to that plan throughout the life of the plan. And of course, you're going to be using the same compliance consultant, the same TPA, to help you from your infant 401k plan all the way to a very senior citizen ARP heavy 401k plan. That it needs to be tended and grown. Why are you smirking at me?
An ARP TPA plan?
Or I don't know. Sorry, the plan's really old. It's got a lot of people in it. Okay, the plan's really young and it goes to really old. No, it works for
Christopher
me.
just made that up. So
Yeah, I did just make
yeah,
it up. All
okay.
right. People think we're coming across this less and less, but people used to think that when they went from record keeper A to record keeper B, they people were terminating their plans. They were terminating their plans when they were moving from one record keeper to another, or moving from one TPA to another. No, the plan's a constant. It's a separate legal entity. You don't terminate the plan because there's some adverse effect. You're not able to defer for over a year if you do that. So it's the same plan. It can have different vendors.
Absolutely. Yep. So whether this should have been at the beginning, I may have it at the end. So really what TPAs do is we say compliance and people get lost in that word, what that means, but we handle the nuts and bolts of the plans. You need a form for a distribution, you need projections, a trustee change, somebody to help you understand who's eligible for a plan or how profit sharing contributions should be allocated.
All the non-sexy, boring stuff that has to be done.
Yeah, but still, once again, I'm trying to be concrete.
Right.
We actually, there's a whole series of tasks that we do. There's a whole series of concrete nuts and bolts things that were very useful in terms of that we think about them. We think about how to do them better. We think about how they fit the plan that's in front of us. And so it's a really specific kind of work that I think is really valuable. And even though what the way the industry is going, where there's like we're trying to streamline everything so that you don't have to have any deep thoughts about plans, it's still important to have the people who have deep thoughts about plans around.
Right.
So any other things that you think you would like to add on why a TPA? Why is it important not to try to chase this part out as being an inefficient part of
Okay.
the system?
So this is where I'm going to talk. Okay. I think now's the right time I get to tell my little
That's
story.
okay.
All right. Now then, this Robin and I were talking to a plan sponsor, talking to them about doing a takeover, and their current compliance consultant is one of those many thousands of people, compliance consultants. So obviously, I think they're not doing as good a job as us. And that was when we came across probably the dumbest selection on a plan provision I have seen in 36 years. Absolutely, without a doubt, the dumbest thing a compliance consultant can do for their plan sponsor.
And it wasn't a font color, right?
It was no, it wasn't font colors. Okay, the plan sponsor. I don't think they were subject to mandatory automatic enrollment, but they had automatic enrollment in there. Now, there's a provision that the feds give us to reduce employee pissed off friction. Now, because once upon a time I used to sell life insurance, I call it the 90-day free look. It's not really a 90-day free look, but you've got the plan sponsor has 90 days from when the deferrals start to tell the employer, okay, to stop doing that and to get their account balance back. We can have a whole different video on the specifics of this, but this plan did not have that provision checked. So what that meant was that the TPA had decided to give the plan sponsor pissed off employees for no benefit to the employer. Okay, because if somebody after 60 days realizes finally you've been taking money out of my paycheck, I want it back, you legally can't. To give the participant the account balance back to them at that point with that plan provision is a prohibited transaction. You cannot do it. All right. So why put this plan provision in place to piss off employees? I don't get it. So, anyways, that's my vote. That's my nominee for dumbest plan design, dumbest plan provision ever.
So as far as TPAs go, working with the plan sponsor, specifically on the plan document, it's really up to them of what they want the provisions to be. But we are there to guide them. We can't say no. You have to do this. Do this. It's really up to them.
Oh yeah.
So that example you gave,
they did not know it was an option
okay,
to give the money back, because they'd had problems with employees. They weren't able to do that. They were told it was not possible to set things up to give money back to the employees, which is even worse. The TPA told them it can't happen.
But Kyle, you are right that plan sponsors do
right.
make the decisions.
Because Kyle's not on a microphone, the question or the clarification was that we don't really fill out the document for the plan sponsor. We tell them what our experience says the questions what the answers need to be based on their demographics and needs and wants and all that other stuff. Okay, but it is ultimately the plan sponsor's decision what the provisions in the plan are. You are absolutely 100% correct, Kyle. Okay, that is 100% true. But again, as in this particular case, they had employees want to take their money back. They were told it was not possible by the TPA. So wrong. There's the question right there, answered incorrectly. So yeah, good question there. But that is also a very good thing to clarify, in that we're not fiduciaries. This is why we're third party administrators. We're helping them fill it out, but they're the ones who sign it. Anything else?
That's it for me.
Okay, that's it for me.
Okay.
So
and
Catherine,
help them fill out means they're not actually putting their own pen to paper and checking the boxes themselves. We're having a dialogue with them,
right,
where they get to make the decision. We mark it on the plan, create the plan document for them to sign, for them to confirm that this is what they want.
Right.
So
some of the things that we're helping them to understand now is there's mandatory automatic enrollment. We're helping them understand how to have that, what that means, how to manage it, how to have it set up to give them the least amount of trouble. Where there are long-term part-time employees is an issue now. So our default plan design is changing based on the demographics of an employer. Again, our default plan design suggestions, if they absolutely want to insist on doing something some way, and they say they can catch the long-term part-time employees, obviously that decision's up to them. But we need to make sure that there's been a lot of changes with Secure 1.0 and Secure 2.0. Plans have to be set up a lot differently than when I started doing this 100 years ago. So, but we're there to help them figure out what those provisions need to be. And you're absolutely right, Catherine. They're not filling out the document. We're filling it out. We're doing the actual work, but it's in concert with the plan sponsor. And when the financial professional wants to, the financial professional is on the virtual call as well.
Yep. So just to kind of wrap it up, 401k plans, very powerful thing to have for your employees, to have for your company. But it's not just a product. It's a product where you need service, and you need to actually look at the kind of services you have. And do you have people who are looking at all the different corners within the plan, right?
Yeah, and make sure you're getting the services that are on the service agreement.
Well, that's always important too. So Christopher, thank you for drinking scotch with me.
It was lovely. I'm really enjoying. Can we keep recording? I'm really enjoying my scotch.
You can drink scotch off camera.
That's true. That's true.
So we very much appreciate you watching our video.
Thank you very much.
Not
to you. Thank you very much, kind viewer and or kind listener.
And so, if people want to contact us,
call us at sales. No, I'm just kidding. You used to say that. Please contact us directly at sales@hunterbenefits.com. And of course, you understand the assignment. Like, subscribe, tell your friends and neighbors, tell the people you don't like about us. And we're hearing from more and more people that they watch our videos, but they never comment. So if your employer or maybe your broker dealer does not prohibit you from commenting or asking a question, please do so on LinkedIn or on the YouTube video. And as we try to say every week, please don't forget to keep those cards and letters coming.
Doodaloo.